Emotion can be a pretty confusing topic when it comes to masculinity in the modern world. Should you shut out your emotions? Should you show them openly? This side is saying this, that side is saying that. You know, an influencer is telling you one thing, movies and TV are telling you another. And as a young man, you might be a little bit unsure, feel a little bit lost, don't know what advice to follow, what to believe or not to believe. And in fact, I was lost for quite some time. And for a pretty significant while, I shut out my emotions completely before letting them take over my actions and decisions for a substantial amount of time as well. So I've kind of tried both things, and in addition to making these experiences, I've also done my research as far as philosophy and the experiences of others go. And in this video, I want to talk about the topic of emotion, in relation to masculinity and what it means to be a man. When people talk about this topic, they usually display it as a sort of two-sided question. You can either let your emotions flow freely, right? Act on them, show them, express them. Or you can shut them out, push them down, bottle them up, and act more stoically, right? Make decisions based on reason and try to keep your emotions kind of caged in somewhere deep down. And then you have one side advocating for number one, right? Showing your emotions, letting them out, being an emotional man. And another side advocating for the whole bottling up. I think this is a very surface level understanding of the whole problem. And I'll get into what I mean by that in a moment. For now, though, what I want to say is that it is typically the hyper-masculine, or at least the people who portray themselves as hyper-masculine, these hyper-masculine types who advocate for bottling up your emotions, shutting them out, acting based on reason, making exclusively rational choices, right? While you see the more mainstream media, movies, TV shows, that type of thing, talk shows, advocating for, this emotionality. And in general, you will see a lot of women say that they want more emotional guys as well. The interesting thing is, though, if you actually pay attention to the way people treat you and people treat others around you, what you will realize is that while an emotional man is treated with kindness, certainly with a lot more kindness than he might have been treated with in the past, depending on what time period, what culture we're looking at, he is not treated with respect. And this is something I realized very quickly. Not quickly enough, I will say. I could have noticed this earlier than I did, but if you show a lot of emotion, if you act emotionally, if you get very sad, things of that nature, people will be nice to you. People will show you kindness, show you love, etc. But more and more, they will lose respect for you as a man. And there's nothing bad about that. There's nothing toxic about that. It's just a deep-seated truth that the ability to keep your emotions in check, and I'm again going to dive into what that actually means in a moment there, but that the ability to keep your emotions in check is an incredibly valuable asset. It allows you to keep your cool in a heated situation, in a situation that might otherwise not be an argument, right? It could be a dangerous situation. See, of course, a verbal fight with someone is heated, right? Emotions run high. But if you get heated, if you lose your cool in a verbal conflict, are you someone who can be relied on in a situation that might get physical? In a situation that would have emotions running way higher than just a discussion turned conflict with someone that is purely verbal? That is maybe taking place even in a secluded context. Maybe it's just you and the other person. There's no one around. You're in like a calm, secure environment, and you're having an argument, a fight, right? A verbal fight. If you lose your cool, if you get angry, sad, offended in such a context, and you can't keep your emotions in check, how is anyone supposed to rely on you in a situation where push actually comes to shove? Where things do matter, where there are actual stakes. So, the question is, how much does respect matter versus having your emotions validated to some extent, right? Being able to express them, having people acknowledge them, etc. And this is where we get into what I mentioned before. People seeing this topic as a sort of two-sided thing where really it is not. I would call shutting out your emotions, bottling them up, one extreme of the spectrum. It's not really a spectrum, it's more of a three-piece system. But yeah, this is one extreme. The other extreme is letting them flow freely. So, you're vividly experiencing emotion. Your actions, your choices are influenced by emotions, in many cases driven by them, right? This is the other extreme. But the problem is, people are not specific about what they mean when they say someone is emotional, or when women, for instance, say they want an emotional man. Because there are actually differences to be pointed out here. You have to be more specific. You have to differentiate between different types of emotionality here. Acknowledging your emotions, registering them, right? Being, to some extent, in touch with them, does not necessarily equal acting on your emotions. And this is the important distinction, in my opinion, that a lot of people don't really seem to be aware of. They kind of throw everything regarding emotion and empathy and the lovely made-up concept of emotional intelligence. They throw all of that into this one bucket and act like it's all kind of the same. It's all connected, which it is to an extent, but that it's all it all kind of overlaps and is more or less the same thing, or at least very closely tied to each other. And that is not necessarily so. What the complete man should strive for is to be in touch with his emotions, but not let them control his decisions and actions. There's a reason we have emotion. There's a reason our emotions exist. In fact, our emotions can, if we have strong values that we are strongly convinced of, be a great indicator of something not aligning with our values, something going against our beliefs. Emotions are almost like a sixth sense in this regard. The same way your hands, your feet, your skin in general feels, your nose smells, your eyes see, your ears hear, your mouth tastes. And all of these senses supply that information to the brain so that you can register things about the world around you and act based on that. In that same way, emotion supplies your brain with extra information. Information from the subconscious. Information that can express deep desires, can express your fear of something that perhaps you cannot register consciously yet in a situation, but that is there, that your subconscious kind of detects to some extent. Can your emotions lead you astray? Yes, certainly. You can have an irrational fear of something that makes you avoid it, even though there's no actual danger there. You can be unreasonably sad in a situation or unreasonably happy and optimistic when things might not call for that type of emotional state. But the question is, can any of your other senses mislead you as well? Certainly. Your eyes can mislead you, your ears, your skin, your sense of smell. Do you think you would be better off not having them? Do you think, oh, my eyes could deceive me? I could see something incorrectly, mistake something for something else. I'd be better off being blind. You think that's a reasonable thing to say, to think? You think that makes sense? Even if you don't have the best eyes in the world, even if you're short-sighted or nearsighted, whatever it might be called, isn't that still better than not having any vision at all? And the same thing goes for emotion. Can your emotions lead you astray? Can your emotions be wrong about a situation? Can they be inadequate for a given situation? Yes, absolutely. Does that mean you should not want to have emotions in the first place? No. That's a silly proposition. Now, one of the reasons why I think the average woman has better intuition when it comes to, just day-to-day life than the average man. Note that I said the average woman, the average man. There are men with very, very good intuition. These men are in touch with their emotions to some extent. But the reason why I think the average woman is superior to the average man when it comes to intuition, intuitively sensing that there's something off about a person, there's something off about a situation, or maybe having a good feeling about something is because women engage with their emotions a lot more. And so their emotions don't kind of boil up. Their emotions don't get pushed to the side, bunched together, until they erupt in a moment that might be very unfitting. Erupt to an extent that is maybe completely disproportional to the moment. You know, an incredible show of anger or sadness, right? A sudden onset of almost depression like sadness and melancholy. Because the thing is, if you bunch up your emotions, if you push them to the side long enough, they might come out at some point in some way. But the emotions that were felt and that were adequate for some situation way back, like a month ago, might come out now in a situation where they are completely unrelated to what is going on. Whereas with women who let their emotions flow more freely, usually, they will feel the emotion that is adequate for the situation. Now, does that mean that these emotions can never be mistaken? No, absolutely not. But the emotion is a much better match for the given situation. And does that mean you should act on these emotions? No, certainly not. And I think that's something the average woman is quite bad at, actually. um, they often do act very emotionally. But the emotions they act on are kind of in touch with the situation at hand. They do, to an extent, make sense in the context of what is going on. Where with the average man who might suppress his emotions to a very significant extent, he might suddenly get incredibly angry, or again, incredibly sad, maybe, or be strangely amused by a situation that is not very amusing, or perhaps shouldn't be. Because all of this has been boiling in the background, just uh, he's been cooking, if you will, been cooking his emotions. And they suddenly just explode. And it's this random, maybe the emotion doesn't match the situation. Maybe the emotion does match the situation, but the intensity of it is just off the charts. And this is where the question of bottling up your emotions or letting them flow freely comes in again. See, I've said that people generally don't respect men who openly show their emotions. Now I'm saying your emotions are like a sixth sense, that they are valuable information that you can use to make rational decisions, right? So that you should, let them flow freely, that if you bottle them up, they might come out in a moment where they are very much not fitting. Which one is it, right? What are you supposed to do? You might be watching this, you're a little bit confused. The question is, do you act based on your emotions? Do you let your emotions flow right into the decision-making process? Or is there like a floodgate in between the source of the emotions, right? The emotions flowing out of your subconscious, let's say, and the emotions reaching that decision-making point. This is what I meant earlier when I said it's kind of a three-part system. You have the source of the emotions, you have the decision making right here, and Obviously, the actions that follow from that, the things you say, the things you do, those are a result of these decisions, ideally, right? And then in the middle, you have the floodgate. And so what many women do, what the average woman often does, is the floodgate is open. So emotions are flowing freely from their source to the decision-making part of this three-part system. Emotion is felt, it flows directly into the decision-making, and a decision is made impulsively, spur of the moment. I'm angry, I'm going to say some angry shit. It might be completely inadequate, inappropriate. It might be something I don't even really mean, right? Women will often say things that, in terms of the actual contents of what they are saying, they don't actually mean, just based on the emotion they are trying to convey. If they're trying to insult someone, hurt someone, they might say something where if they actually consciously thought about it, it's not something they think, or it's an exaggeration maybe of something they think. Same thing can go for actions, throwing a bit of a temper tantrum, throwing things around, getting up, stomping around, that sort of thing. The average man, and this has started to shift a bit, there's a lot of quite feminine men nowadays who might also act in this way I just described. But I think the average man still typically doesn't just have the floodgate closed. He actually has this source locked up as well. So the woman has the floodgate open and has her emotions flowing freely from their source all the way right into the decision-making process. Maybe not on every decision, but actually I think the average woman, maybe at least to a small extent on every decision, is letting her emotions flow right in there. The average man has the floodgate closed. Maybe not even that. Maybe the floodgate, he isn't even concerned with whether it's open or closed because the source itself is blocked up. He's stacked up stones. He's built like a floodgate right at the source of these emotions. And there are no emotions, essentially, right? Of course, they're still there, right? If you block up a source of water, the water is not going to disappear. It's going to build up. And at some point, there's going to be enough pressure that it just blows out whatever kind of blockage you constructed there and flows again. And then what the average man will do is quickly block up the source again. So we have these two extremes. One is acting on emotion. The other is trying to ignore emotion completely. What the complete man does is he lets the emotion flow to the floodgate. The floodgate is, again, one step in front of the decision-making. This is the proactive part. We are making decisions and taking actions here. This is the sort of intermediary part where we have other sources. This might be emotion, right? This might be vision. This might be hearing. This down here might be knowledge. Okay. All of these sources of information are flowing here. And the complete man has all of them open, but he has the floodgate closed. Now, how does what I'm talking about look in practice? What it looks like in practice is a situation unfolds, a conflict arises, say, and you feel anger at what someone does or says, for example. But you consciously register that anger, right? Instead of acting out of impulse, like you're a dog, you register that anger. You register, I'm getting angry right now. You use that information. Why am I getting angry right now? Right? What is this indicating? What is this communicating to me? You reflect on it, and then you make a conscious, rational decision based on your values and the situation at hand. So you are feeling your emotions, but you are also consciously registering them and then acting in accordance with your actual values, how you should act, rationally speaking, and the information your emotions have provided. So in any given situation, and this is going to take practice, by the way, and it's going to be a lot easier if your general emotional state is decently balanced. In any given situation, try to feel the emotions you actually feel, right? Let them flow. But don't make decisions, don't act, don't speak based on your emotions. Again, this is going to take practice. And an incredibly important factor when it comes to this is being in a somewhat balanced emotional state in general. Because of this fact, I am going to be making a bit of a video series on this topic. So this was the first video and kind of the core of the topic. This video is obviously about emotion in relation to masculinity in general. The next videos will be more applied advice, more practical advice relating to certain aspects of modern life, the modern day-to-day of many young men, that may very well influence your emotional state in such a way that it becomes quite hard to keep your emotions in check unless you bottle them up completely. So the next few videos will be on topics like music, diet, other such habits. I'm going to make a video on porn as well. Stay tuned for that. Obviously, the videos I made before this one, last week, the week before, I believe, as well, were more fitness, more training focused. So for the next couple of videos, I'm going to be focusing on a more philosophical and, in the psychological sense, health-related topic. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, interesting, you learned something, you were perhaps inspired to, modify your behavior, the way you approach the topic of emotionality in regards to your masculine self, go ahead and leave a like. And if you have any questions, any suggestions for future videos, perhaps go down below to the comments section and feel free to tell me about them. Or if you just want to push the algorithm, go ahead and leave a comment as well. If you want a personalized training program or you're interested in coaching of some type, go ahead and hit me up on Instagram. My Instagram is down below in the description as well. And just DM me. We can talk about details over there. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more videos of mine in the future. I make videos like these on philosophy, health, etc., but also of course, quite a few videos on the topic of training. So this channel is a very holistic fitness channel, if you will, because I do consider mind and character to be a very integral part of a man's fitness. And if you do subscribe and you don't want to miss any of the upcoming videos on this topic of emotion and how to keep your emotions in check in the modern world, go ahead and activate the notification bell. I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll see you guys in the next one, the next video, which is going to be on the topic of music. You might be curious to find out what that video is about. Stay tuned for it, and until then, have a good one.